Good evening. Tonight is Thursday, December 1st. Welcome to the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education public hearing. We're going to begin tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to open tonight as if it were, a regular board meeting, and we need to have a motion to open the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. I need approval of the agenda as stated. Can I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we are going to open tonight for the purpose of public comment on the policy 5100 Princeton plan. It's an attendance policy. And before we get started tonight, I'm actually going to read an opening statement to you all. It's not typical of my style, but tonight I really feel that it's necessary. So on behalf of myself and my amazing team of trustees, we welcome you here tonight. We're happy to see you all in the audience, whether you're speaking or not. Thank you for coming. I want to be sure that the goal is loud and clear. The board has decided to hold this public hearing in an effort to obtain critical information and a deeper understanding of the experiences of the Princeton plan across our community. The board is here only to listen. There will be no problem solving at the event. However, the board commits to a follow-up with the community to present what we have learned. The board recognizes that not every community member is comfortable speaking publicly. We have distributed optional surveys that can be completed and dropped in the bin this evening. We're also welcoming communications via email, and our email address is boe@henhudschools.org. Please note, tonight is not the only opportunity for feedback. There will be an ongoing effort to engage with the community. For those of you who have signed up to make public comment, please note that you will be given 3 minutes to speak. While we value all of your thoughts and hate to cut anyone short, it is pertinent that we keep to our time restrictions this evening. Speaking directly to or about district personnel is not permitted. When called up to the podium, please include your name and, if you wish, the grades or buildings in which your children attend school. The board expects comments to be made without interference from the audience and in a civil manner. Lastly, I'm asking that we all be respectful of one another. Everyone is entitled to their feelings, their perspective, and their experience. There is no right or wrong. Providing feedback, both positive and negative, is critical to making improvements within our district. Thank you for being here, and we appreciate your contribution this evening. I'm going to ask that Carmen call each speaker one at a time in the order in which we signed up. And you will be given your 3 minutes. There is, clearly, you can see that we have a timer up, and it will make a noise when your 3 minutes is up. Sometimes when you're speaking, you get caught up in talking, and there will be a notice that your time has expired. And unfortunately, we have to keep moving because I think we have over 30 people signed up to speak tonight. Sure. And if you do get cut off and you have many more thoughts that you feel are important to share with us, you can email us the rest of whatever it was that you wanted to share.
Good evening, everyone. The first speaker is Ann Bacala.
Good evening. So I'm Ann Bacala, and I am a grandparent of 2 children in EV, and I am also a parent of 2 children that attended Furnace Woods back in the day when it was K-5. I am also a newly retired teacher from Tarrytown School District, which is currently under the Princeton plan. So as a parent, I just want to say that I always considered myself lucky to not have to deal with the concerns that I heard as a teacher of the parents that were in my district. They were concerned with student drop-offs, multiple different drop-offs. They were concerned with picking up their students. They were concerned with their children changing another school again and again and again. And it concerned them, and they dealt with it each year. So that was something that, as a parent, I did not have to deal with, and I was lucky because my children went to Furnace Woods, and I didn't have to worry about that. As a teacher, I envied my colleagues who were teachers in the K-5 building. They were able to collaborate freely with teachers of other grade levels. And that was really something that I envied because I was somewhat confined. I was a second grade teacher with third grade, outgoing, and then I was again a second grade teacher when we had first grade. So we were 1-2 building and then a 2-3. So I was limited. And I always felt that teachers that were able to collaborate freely during staff meetings or however, whenever, were able to, talk to each other about, incoming students, outgoing students, things that were happening in the building or with students. And it was easier. As a teacher, we had to schedule times to talk to teachers of other grade levels. So they scheduled times for us to, collaborate about students that were coming in and students that were leaving. So that was always something that, like I said, I envied my colleagues that had a K-5 building. I thought that they were at an advantage for collaborating with their peers and also it helped them so that the students could benefit from that. So that's really what I'd like to say. I hope that my grandchildren, I hope that they're going to be able to cope with these changes and, all those things that the students have to deal with. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tamika Dietrich.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to read because I'm really nervous. I don't like public speaking. My name is Tamika Dietrich. I have a son that is in BV. He's in second grade. We have all talked about being one head, and the word community has been echoed a lot. The truth is, this was never a community. As a community, we'd be working on the betterment of all, not just a few. The previous plan allowed for some of the schools to have more than others, smaller class sizes, more resources, and somehow that was acceptable. Everyone is aware of the equality that existed between the schools and that resources were not equally allocated. The Princeton plan has allowed for my son to see all of his friends he made during sports, camp, that outside of playdates that he would not have seen due to the zoning. I also believe that all of the resources are being utilized much better by having all of the grades in one building as well as one PTA. Teachers can collaborate, bounce ideas off of each other, teach each other as they're working off of the same curriculum. Also, asking teachers to pack up and start over again is not fair to them. They have enough to do educating our children. This plan has been implemented for about 4 months now, and with everything, improvement can always be made. There is no way to roll out something like this and it be perfect from the start. If busing is the issue, let's work on things that can be improved. Let's all focus on our kids and the success of them, as that will be a measure of community success overall. And accomplishing this should be our top focus. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jennifer Rambala.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Rambala. I have 2 children who attend BV in 2nd and 3rd grade. I'm here tonight to give you my perspective on how the Princeton plan has negatively impacted my family. First, travel time. Furnace Woods is less than 4 minutes from our home and 1.4 miles away. The bus ride was less than 10 minutes last year. This year, they're 8.2 miles away at BV and are on the bus for over 30 minutes, closer to 45 minutes. We are increasing travel time and time spent on the bus for most children. Next year, I will have both children in separate schools, and families with multiple children are especially burdened with this plan. Change. Let's address change. Ask yourself, would you change your job every 2 years? Would you move neighborhoods every 2 years? Why or why not? I can tell you why not. It's adjustment. It takes a long time. Imagine what this is like for our children. This is what has happened to them. They are moving every 2 years. This breaks down to a child changing schools 4 times within 9 years. By the time they have fully adjusted to the school and teachers, it's back to the beginning and pulling the carpet out from underneath them to do it all over again. This is not conducive to a consistent learning environment for all children. They need consistency. And this brings me to the topic of health. Allow me to remind you that we are talking about our young children who are at a crucial developmental stage. Are we concerned with our children's health and their emotional states? What are we doing to help them to regulate their nervous systems? How can we ensure all students are adjusting and not suffering silently? Before students became familiar with their building, the teachers and peers, having consistency and being comfortable helps create safety. And when we feel safe, we thrive in an environment. Trauma occurs when things happen too fast, too soon, too often, and the nervous system cannot keep up. Inconsistency contributes to our children not having the stability and safety necessary for a regulated nervous system. This impacts their emotional health, even though we may feel that kids are resilient. The Princeton plan does not provide stability and consistency. My hope tonight is that you consider all of the facts presented and understand the damage being done to our children because of this change that has been implemented. After listening to the speakers tonight, I invite you to reflect on the following. Who is the Princeton plan really benefiting? The district or the children? I hope you think about our children and all of the ways the Princeton plan directly impacts their development. Let's remember, it should always be about the children and not a budget. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Victoria Rial.
Good evening. My name is Victoria Rial. I have 2 children in the school district. My 5-year-old attends FGL and my 9-year-old attends Furnace Wood School. I am here tonight to express my family's hardships because of the Princeton plan. This plan was rushed through during the pandemic without allowing parents to express their concerns about the adverse effects it would have on their children's education. I am a registered nurse and was able to continue working during the pandemic. My husband's business, on the other hand, was forced to close. When schools reopened, my husband was able to see our children off to school. Once businesses were allowed to reopen, my husband could return to work. However, he is losing income due to that busing situation. The kids now attend 2 different schools, take separate buses at different times. He is unable to take on early morning clients because he now has to put my youngest on the bus at 8:35, causing our family financial hardships. If not for the Princeton plan, I would be able to put both children on the bus at 8 a.m., allowing my husband to see clients. It was bad enough that we lost financial income because of the pandemic and the lockdowns. Now this Princeton plan is also costing us money. The Princeton plan was initially proposed to save the district and the taxpayer money. I do not see the logic, since buses have to drive all day using fuel that is currently exorbitant in cost. Now we are told that it is not saving much money and that the Princeton plan was for diversity. This is 2022, and we are not battling segregation. In actuality, this plan is hindering my children from diversity. In traditional elementary schools, children have the diversity of not just race and culture, but age groups. My husband is 100% Spanish, and my children are 50%. My children have friends in the neighborhood of varying cultures, religions, and races, from Muslim, African American, and Spanish, to name a few. My children do not lack exposure to diversity. Furthermore, the after-school programs are not practical for students who have siblings in separate elementary schools like my daughters. My 9-year-old cannot participate in the after-school academy because pickup is at 3:45, and my other daughter gets off the bus at 3:50. We cannot be in 2 places at one time. If my children were at the same elementary school, then both could attend school, return on the bus, and participate in the after-school curriculum. The Princeton plan is not financially sound and causes financial hardships for families and academic disadvantages for our children. Kindergartners should not have to ride the bus for 35 minutes at that age, as my daughter does. I was told that one school had to turn a closet into a classroom. How is this helping our students? I asked the board to reconsider and redraw district lines with 3 elementary schools and bring back kindergarten through 5th grade under one roof. Furthermore, as stated on the district webpage, quote, research does not show a correlation between student achievement either increasing or decreasing as a result of adopting the Princeton plan, unquote. Therefore, I do not understand why you put my children through the stress this year. Thank you for your time and consideration in reviewing the Princeton plan.
The next speaker is Janelle McNeil.
Hi, my name is Janelle McNeil. Myself, I'm an alumni. My eldest daughter graduated in 2017, and my youngest is a senior. I am thankful all three of us had the experience of a K-5 school when we attended. I believe this issue is relevant to all the community members, not just parents with elementary age children. I've spoken directly with Mr. Hochreiter about my concerns prior to the change. Homeowners purchase and stay in great school districts because of their house values. If there are issues that deter young families from coming in and staying in our community, that impacts all the taxpayers. Since the closure of Indian Point, our community has been trying to build up our community to sustain the tax loss. To sustain the tax increase, not to find other issues to push people away. If it's not good for our students and it's not good for the parents, it's certainly not good for our community as a whole. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mark Ward.
I'm all right. So, everyone gets it wrong. Hi, my name is Mark Woodger. I have 3 kids, 1 in each building. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Firstly, I should say that I do not think the previous decision was made with any malintent, and all the staff continue to provide the very best for our kids. With regards to the Princeton plan, I wish to lay out the following reasons I'm opposed. Firstly, the impact on the kids. And this is a subset of what I view as the most important. It's a long list that we can all talk about all evening. Firstly, the loss of family community in the school. Siblings don't get to go to school with each other. Kids and families don't get to know the teachers, and teachers and the nurses and other staff don't get to know the kids. Bus routes, up to 45 minutes on the bus for my 2 youngest kids. They get on the bus 10 minutes after the first one in the morning. They get home 1 hour later because of the long bus routes. That's a long day for kids in K and 3rd grade. There's also a lack of sibling comfort with them not being on the same bus on the way home. There's fewer teachers. I believe any plan that has fewer teachers must be questioned as to whether that's actually a good idea, considering that teachers are the most important things in a school. School transitions, as others have said, is the most stressful part of being a kid. This is a plan that goes from 3 transitions to 5, including starting at kindergarten. So that's nearly double the stressifications. Next up, the parents. Emails. We get 3 of them for everything that we do. As someone who struggles with emails, that's a tough one. Bus drop off and pick up at different times. 3 of everything. Halloween parades, meet the teacher, parent-teacher conferences. It's tough to coordinate when the kids are small. It's obviously easier when the kids are in high school and they can be somewhat left alone. But trying to skip 3 mornings to do a Halloween because you can't pick one over the other is a harder thing to coordinate. Inevitably, we found ourselves focusing on the logistics of our lives rather than the education of our kids and supporting them with homework and other challenges. And also the handling of those emotional challenges rather than their education. As we've heard from teachers this evening, the impact on them is great as well and their views, but I don't know enough to really comment on that. Discussions on equality and the quality of schooling across the community are perfectly valid, and I entirely understand those. But I believe that there's other ways to accomplish those than via the Princeton plan. As yet, to my knowledge, there is no clear definition of success. The budget savings has not materialised. The buses are going to get run into the ground, and I'm running out of time, so I'll leave it there and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Anne Maloney.
Hello. Hi. Spent a lot of time together this week. Hello again. I'm Anne Malloy. I have 2 children at BMS, and I also have the privilege of serving as the co-president of the PTA at BMS. But I'm here today as me, Anne Malloy, parent. So people will, first of all, thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it, so thank you very much. I have a request. I think sort of what I've heard over the past few months is a lot of people raising very valid issues. And I think we haven't simply instituted a change. This is a metamorphosis in this community. And any change such as that should be managed in a very active manner with the key constituents meeting on a regular basis in a steering committee type setting with the access and the capacity to affect real change within reason and the access to the folks who can affect change. And I think we can today affect the latter half of this school year. We put together a team of representatives that are inclusive of the faculty of the school, the board, the parents who can speak to how this affects at home and have regular, candid, honest, productive conversations. Outside of this setting, this is very hard to manage. We shouldn't be learning about these things because we need a board meeting. You should have a report from this committee that raised the busing issue as an example on the third week of school. And we could have been already working on a solution to that and sort of preempting some of this anger, this frustration, the pain that everyone is suffering. So I think we have the capacity for instituting a committee that is far more inclusive of the community and all of the key stakeholders that are affected by this change, so we get to manage this change successfully from this point forward. So that is my request to this collective group, to try and establish a better method for managing this change in a productive and positive way moving forward. Thank you.
The next speaker is Theodora Calaboros.
First, like many of the speakers here today, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you for even proposing this meeting, dedicated to hearing from us, and as we've seen already, addressing some of our concerns head on. I stress this because I'm bitter. In the past, often I received just a quick thank you for your email. Some concerns were never even mentioned or discussed while I watched every board meeting looking for dialogue brought up by the community in public comments or by emails to the board, so it was a disappointment. So my concerns today about how it's going are similar to my concerns before we started. I'm still concerned that the transitions are causing learning loss. Less transitions is the best model for children. Even switching from junior high has been proven to result in learning loss. Adding 2 more transitions will add to the gap of our already struggling children, and it was never addressed properly. We should have had an understanding of this before we move forward. I'm also concerned with the time spent by parents at the bus stops, like we've heard. It's not just a mere inconvenience to a family. We have to rearrange work schedules, work later in the evening, or pay someone else to help. Our siblings are separated, but no older kids to model up to. I know that my son looks up to his older classmen to model his behavior and understanding of his expectations. Modeling up is important to a lot of children. Again, I can't say how we could measure that, but I wish we would have considered it as a loss in our learning environments. We're also moving backwards with less in-classroom bathrooms for our youngest children, and our buses running longer, impacting the environment. And not to discount what the entire community needs, I know we need more money, but when asked what businesses we can get into our district to close the financial gaps, the people who live near the business sites are always considered in the decision-making process. They worry about the traffic in their streets, obstructing their views and just their quality of life. But when it came to making this decision, those who raised their voices basically felt that they were really negatively impacted, and they felt dismissed, that it was trivial, or this model works for other districts, so it's okay for us. So I hope we're not dismissed today. Some of the concerns I raised may seem small to some, but collectively it decreases our quality of life and the students' progress. We needed a change, but not this change. So as you can guess, I think it was a mistake to move away from our neighborhood schools, and I believe it could be easily reversed as swiftly as it was implemented in the first place.
Next speaker is Ann Wilkins Leach.
Hi.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ann Wilkins Leach. I'm a grandparent of 6 children, 5 of whom are in the district, ranging in grade level from kindergarten to 10th grade. And my input from them is they like it. They are happy. They like the Princeton plan. However, there's always a however. It's a busing situation. God knows I understand budget. But the morning bus for FGL also picks up BV kids, and that makes the little ones uncomfortable. I've also heard, now I have not been on the bus, so God knows I don't know, but this is what my middle schooler has told me, that when he rides the bus, often by the time they're 3/4 of the way there, it's standing room only. So if that could be looked into, I would appreciate it. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Our next speaker is Frank Dominguez.
Good evening. It's important that the board hears all of our concerns when it comes to the education of our children and also how the district plans to use our hard-earned tax dollars. I think the previous school board was given numerous opportunities to listen to the community and failed to do so. When the community was finally given a vehicle to be heard in the form of an election, the community spoke loud and clear, and the community decided to vote out all the advocates for the Princeton plan with new board members, so thank you. From early on, we had written, called, and advocated for full transparency and sources of information. The district tried to sell the community the cost savings associated with the Princeton plan. Meeting after meeting, the leadership spoke about these cost savings. They even created a portal online to show you how much you would save with the Princeton plan compared to not using the model at all. All along, I knew, and sure many others did, that there wasn't going to be any significant cost savings from the numbers presented. Even if the plan was managed correctly without a hiccup, the savings would be so insignificant that it would not weigh the inconvenience that it did to the families in our community. What drew my wife and I to the area was the tight-knit community, being close to the hospital, and the proximity to our early development community schools. Knowing that we were 4 minutes away from the elementary school and middle school, to us was a huge selling point. I would have never, if I would have known what I've known then, what I know now, I would have never moved my family to the school district. Many prospective families will exactly feel the same way. As a parent of 3, my wife and I now constantly talk about how to manage our careers, along with 3 different school drop-offs in the morning. I think it's also an additional stress associated to my day, knowing that I'll be at work with 3 of my small boys being in 3 different schools in the social climate that we exist in today. I think about what they will go through getting settled into a school only to move again, and again. I also find it a little comical that now, after most of the truth has started to come to light, that the school's leadership says that this radical shift in the fundamental process for our youngest in the district was not about saving residents money, but it was mostly about equity and diversity. It is shameful to turn to that as a scapegoat, knowing that today's cancel culture society will make that a tough public argument for those in opposition to the Princeton plan. I would say if it was really about equity, the plan shouldn't have been to disrupt the whole school district so that you can avoid hard conversations with residents and dance around fixing the issues where the district knew they were. Social equity would be making a commitment to fix the areas of concern that our district was aware of and trying to repair any inequalities that existed and working tirelessly to eliminate them. Social equity in our schools is not achieved by creating a system that is created to force every child to have the same experience, whether if it's good or bad, so you can just say it's fair across the board. That's an ideology of socialism, not social equity. Finally, if the leadership's comprehension of equity is that, then I call for the school board to impose a flat school tax so that every school tax paying resident pays the exact same school tax, being that every student will get the exact same education from K through 12. If not, I implore the board to carry a motion at the next meeting to reverse back to our community school district. Thank you.
Next speaker is Dana Goyer.
You've earned your flyer miles.
a little nervous. Shouldn't be, because I'm up here, but good evening to all in attendance. Thank you to the current Board of Education for allowing this forum to happen. We all can agree that this forum should have happened prior to the vote in April of 2021. So for those that are here today that are not on the board, not part of administration, I thank you for coming and speaking. And if you've opted not to speak, but just to be here, I urge you to consider sharing what's on your heart and mind to all via email. I'm here as a parent and a parent only, but as a parent of 2 students, one at FGL and one at Furnace Woods, and as an active participant in our school district, I thought it made sense to give you my thoughts for you to consider. First, I'm going to start with some positives. And I may look weird for saying this, but did you know in the Bible, in Hebrews 6:19, it describes the anchor of a ship as a symbol of hope, a hope for our soul. Whatever you may believe, and everyone has the right in this country to follow your own beliefs, I know we can all agree that operating from a place of hope for our students, a hope for a brighter tomorrow, today, is the central tenet we can all rally around. Here, everyone, here comes from a good place, everyone. Hope can look different for each of us, and that's okay. And having a difference of an opinion is good, so long as we receive each opinion in a respectful way. Second, I'm thrilled and grateful for every person I have met because of this reorganization. People I may have not known who are in my life today have been beneficial, so thank you to you. Lastly, getting to know our elementary buildings, the teachers, the staffs, the principals across the board, the custodians, the administrative assistants. You know who you are, and you have been a highlight for me. We know today that financially we're not saving money. I think many of us appreciated the awareness to that. The shift to this model to save money, which leads people to be upset because the model disrupted families with multiple children along with schedules. I'm disappointed that other models were not evaluated, like a 2 community school and 1 intermediate, or redistricting. We were told that those would not save us enough money, but if we did an enrollment and transportation playbook in those models, maybe we would have seen the class size equity that we were hoping for. We also would have seen families with younger children being closer to schools from their home with shorter bus rides, and we would not have increased our carbon footprint as much as we have. We've seen a compromise that our community we could have seen a compromise that our community may have supported, but we did not do the research. I was on the Princeton Plan Committee. The question is, why did we not do it? As a parent, I'm torn on what you should do next. When I ask my children, I receive opposite answers. My son is happy, my daughter has lost friendships. There's awkwardness in a school she once called a second home to herself. It's not a safe place. The model has disrupted her experience, and I don't know the impact it will have until much later. I believe in our motto, one head HUD, and I hope we move to live with it as we continue to experience these growing pains. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Bill Wallace.
I was hoping for a shorter podium. We can get it. Sorry, I had to say it. So I gotta be honest, when this came out, my wife and I were vehemently against this plan, the Princeton plan. Unfortunately, we had no say in the matter. No voice, had to helplessly stand by while it was just haphazardly pushed through by former members of the board, and we know who they are. They never listened to the community, they didn't properly scrutinize arbitrary finances and budgets, did not perform proper and thorough research, and really never questioned any of it. Hey, Joe, I'm here. No. It was forced and pushed through. Those board members were dismissive and condescending, and I remember on multiple times when people poured their hearts out, it was noted. That was the word, noted. That's all they got when parents were passionately arguing against this. So financially, we obviously know now that it doesn't make sense. We're not saving money. In fact, it was pointed out in the past 2 board meetings in which the new board members, who are doing an amazing job, they analyzed it, and they showed it to be a loss, not a financial gain for the district. The Princeton plan is not saving money. It is costing the district more money, and we're still uncertain about how much eventually it's going to cost the district. So that's a problem. One of the board members, in fact, who was a direct decision maker in voting the Princeton plan in, currently sits on the board, and he stated on the 11/16 board meeting that, quote, "We should look forward and not look back." I've been in business a long time. When things go wrong, you do a postmortem. When things aren't working out correctly, you do a postmortem. You figure out what went wrong, how we didn't do the right thing, what did we miss. You can't just look forward. You gotta look back to make sure you don't make that mistake again. You made the same mistake with that math program. You bought a program based on a publisher's saying, oh, great program. Salesperson's great program, I'm in sales. I don't let customers buy unless they POC something. You should have POC'd it. You cost the town money. So we need to look back because the way this decision was made was based on just simple hearsay and conjecture. A massive disruption to the elementary school structure should have been vetted out more precisely and with more thought than the way it was forced. These poor children, in the last couple of years, and I'm getting emotional because in the last couple of years they had COVID, they had masks, they had this, they had that. And now they gotta go to different schools all the time. Every 2 years they gotta go somewhere else. Are you kidding me? Come on, these are kids. So the Board of Ed at the time, those in favor of the Princeton plan, superintendent, those administrators directly involved clearly seem incapable of making a decision of this magnitude. And our kids, unfortunately, are paying the price for it. It's disgusting, okay? We need to look back because the way in which this decision was made can never, ever happen again. We cannot let this happen again. We are so passionate about this because it directly impacts my daughter, your kids, and everybody else out there who's on a bus at 30 minutes to go to a school that should have been 5 minutes away. Who made it? Why? What is the benefit? How does this happen?
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Thank you so much.
And who's accountable?
Sir, I'm sorry.
I know you're sorry. Who's accountable? Okay? So for everybody out there, fight back.
Thank you.
Here is Lauren Stanka.
Hi, my name is Lauren Stanko, and I live on One Red Oak Trail, and I have kids in Blue Mountain, Frank G. Lindsay, Furnace Woods, and one in preschool. I'm a graduate of Hendrick Hudson School District from kindergarten through high school. Many years ago, when I was in kindergarten, the school board then, unlike the last board, listened to the community and chose to redistrict attendance zones rather than disrupt what was best about neighborhood schools. They rejected the Princeton plan. The decision most recently to assign elementary schools by grade level was sold to the community as a cost savings necessary because of the closing of Indian Point. We now hear from the board the opposite is true. It is actually costing more. We were also told that there would not be any impact on the transportation program. The opposite is true. In addition, too many very young children are being required to change schools every year, not every 2 years, until the plan is fully implemented. Have you read the research on the negative effects of frequent school changes on children? If not, you should. You talk about the need for equity of opportunity for the children, but this plan deprives young children of the challenge of being with older children, deprives siblings of close age from attending school together, deprives families and students of the pride in their neighborhood and school. It deprives teachers of identifying over time family traits that are helpful or not to a child. You have addressed the needs of some by sacrificing the many. You say things cannot go back to what they were. What does that mean? Have you or the previous board identified alternatives to this Princeton plan? Why build on previous mistakes? Return the Hendrick Hudson elementary schools to the neighborhoods that value them and then decide what you need to do to provide the best opportunities for all children and their families. As a mom of 4 kids, ages 12 to 3, the past 3 months have been stressful with keeping up on all emails from 3 different schools, school happenings, dismissal and arrival time, driving my kids all over the place to and from school, parent-teacher conferences at multiple schools. I am burnt out. I feel this was all rushed and not properly thought through. This huge decision was made during COVID, which was ridiculous. It was voted on without any of the public being able to be there since we were at home on lockdown and watching on Zoom. It feels our kids have been guinea pigs in a bad experiment, which is a sad fact. Please do better next year and put things back the way they were. These are our kids and their future is at stake.
Our next speaker is Victoria Carrasquillo.
Hello, my name is Victoria. I don't like Princeton plan. I miss my teachers, Mr. Bruno, Miss Rose, and more. I don't get to see my friends most times. I don't get to see my sister at recess or my little brother at all. I don't like it at all.
Mariella Carrasquillo.
With 3 kids in elementary, it's no secret that I was opposed to Princeton plan from the very beginning. I cried, I begged, I protested, we lost. I truly have tried to make the best of it as I had no choice and want to be positive for my children. I'm not going to dwell on buses or logistics as we all know it's an evident problem. It's also very clear that we save no money. The only thing Princeton plan did was bring attention to what needed to be fixed. That if the district did their due diligence, could have been solved without Princeton plan. BV needed attention, and Mr. Easy came in and did it. Painting, removing carpets, new swing sets that replaced the sad, rusted ones that sat there, and so on. Not every school had after-school academy, now every school has it. Not every school did school store, now every school has it. Spirit wear varied from school to school. Now all kids wear the same gear and show pride the same way. The PTA brought our ideas together and we banged our heads against a wall trying to provide equal experience. It wasn't easy. Everything is and was 3 times as hard, but we are doing it. And as long as the PTA keeps working together, the schools can remain equitable, but in a K-5 manner. Keep the programs and buildings, but reverse the structure. My personal feedback as a parent, not that of the PTA, is that our focus next year should be on neighborhood K-5 schools and grade level events. We do have the opportunity to bring grade levels together without the Princeton plan. Grade level field trips, grade level field days, and grade level fun nights hosted by the PTA. It's much easier to do occasional grade level events than it is to uproot entire families 9 months of the year and cause nothing but chaos and confusion. As much as I respect all 3 principals, I don't want to deal with 3 principals. It's a logistical nightmare. Let's say I have a personal family matter. I want to confide in 1 principal and 1 admin, not 3 principals and 3 admins. It's no longer personal, but a mass communication. The personalization is gone with Princeton plan. It's literally a revolving door. The personal relationships with principals, administrators, and nurses are gone. Medical conditions unknown, learning challenges unknown, and kids' names not known. I also see no benefit from an educational standpoint. We eliminated 7 teachers, so now there are more students per teacher. Princeton plan basically put all our grade level kids under 1 roof. But it's not the roof that keeps the community together, the foundation. We have lost the foundation of school and the foundation of family. Family comes first. My 3 babies should be in the same elementary school. I should see them in the same Halloween parade and meet all their teachers in the same school. I started this fight to stay in Furnace Woods, but now I would take any school given to me if it were a K-5 building and my children were together again. Redistrict everyone, bring Peekskill to Furnace Woods, keep me in BV. It doesn't matter to me because nothing is more important than the foundation and
Thank you,
stability
Mario.
of family.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Martino.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Martino, and a couple of you may remember me from the Princeton Plan public hearing that was held in 2021. I was one of only 7 people who chose to share their opinion that night. As awkward as that Zoom forum was, I felt compelled to advocate for maintaining our neighborhood school model. My son at that time was a first grader at Furnace Woods. He had a wonderful teacher who supported his learning. He was familiar with the routines and support staff in the building, and he looked forward to attending school each day. It was really every parent's dream. As a parent, I knew transitioning to the Princeton Plan meant my child would have to leave the neighborhood school he had grown to know and love. It meant that his education would once again be disrupted more than it had already been due to COVID. It meant that he would no longer benefit from attending our neighborhood K-5 school, one that we intentionally chose for our child. As an educator, I could foresee that my son would not benefit from the disruptions he would encounter as the district implemented Princeton Plan and worked through the challenges with transportation, discipline, scheduling. I knew he would not experience a strong research-based academic program due to curriculum initiatives that would be implemented. I knew that the lack of consistency throughout the early grades would impact my child's ability to build a strong foundation, develop solid work habits, and could diminish his opportunity to become a confident student with a love of learning. So our family made the decision not to return to the district this fall. While I cannot speak to the impact Princeton Plan has had on my child, I can share that I'm saddened to hear from friends that their children are struggling, whether it be in the classroom or on the bus. I'm angry to hear that administrators are not supporting parents as they advocate for their children's safety. I'm frustrated for parents trying to juggle different bus stops and schedules for multiple children, even causing them to miss work or be burdened financially because they have to hire babysitters. But most importantly, I'm disheartened that so many children's lives have been changed for the promise of financial savings that haven't been realized. Instead, families are being encouraged to celebrate equal class sizes, which still fail to address the inequities within the district. I'm hopeful that you, unlike the group I spoke to in 2021, will consider the feedback you received tonight and move forward to ensure that all students have a positive elementary school experience, considering the tremendous impact it will have on student achievement in later years. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Alex Gabovich.
Hi, my name is Alex Gabovich. I have 2 daughters here in 2 different buildings, first grader and third grader. Well, I support and agree with all previous speakers who opposed this plan, who dislike this plan, who are disgusted by this plan. I'm not going to get into the economical aspect of this plan. Obviously, it's a failure. It's just simple math. My third grade daughter knows that. If her bus ride took 10 minutes last year from Furnace Woods, and now it takes 35 minutes, so it's extra hour every day, back and forth, multiplied by 35 weeks. Okay, so that's about economy. Now on the personal mode. We moved here from New York City 4.5 years ago. Actually, one of the main reason and criteria to moving here from New York City was Furnace Woods Elementary School, which both of my children attended. It was kindergarten, and then in 2 years, younger daughter went to kindergarten, and then first grade. Now she's in first grade here in this school. It causes a terrible discomfort and distress, but we could cope with that. Our children, I don't think, can. So we're actually considering selling our house and moving. All our friends who wanted to move here in this district because of the school, and the school was great. Mariella recommended the school. I'm talking about friends' schools. We're actually trying to convince them not to do this and not to buy here. So is it good for community? I don't think, this is a rhetorical question. So pretty much that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amy Morrow.
Good evening, I'm Amy Morrow. I have 2 children in the elementary schools. One is now at BB and the other one is at Furnace Woods. I'd like to thank everyone on the board and the administration for allowing the people in this room to have a chance to weigh in on this issue. When indeed, as many will agree, I feel like we should have been allowed this opportunity before the restructuring was implemented. Many of the issues I plan to speak about have already been brought up. But I did wish to express what a great job the educational staff has done so far to make the changes that our kids have experienced a little less detrimental than I expected them to be. My kids are both in great classrooms and they are happy. But that said, as a parent, it's hard to see the positives outweighing the negatives here. Was uprooting the children from their community schools and separating them from their siblings and requiring them to adapt to new buildings every 2 years really the only solution that was capable of recouping the money lost due to the closure of Indian Point? Clearly not, as we've learned by way of our new board's investigations, there has been no significant savings, not anywhere near to what we were told it would possibly be. Myself, along with many of my friends, have had to rearrange our lives and work schedules to accommodate to this new structure. I cannot even imagine how people with less fortunate, with less finances, can make this manage to work, and I only have 2 children. We're several months in now, and it's not getting any easier to spot the educational benefits that we were told we would gain by grade banding. We live within walking distance to our old school, and now we must drive 25 minutes to pick up both children from the different schools if they might have a doctor appointment or need to be picked up early. God forbid there be an emergency requiring us to act quickly to get both of our children. My daughter says that she can see her friends only 1 day per week. My son's classroom ends up smelling because it has a bathroom inside of it. There have been no mind-blowing social network shifts either, which is the same I hear from many of my peers with children in the same grades. There's a feeling of isolation as well. With children in 2 new buildings, there's no cohesion. We keep hearing the catchphrase, one hen hut. We were always one hen hut. Now we're overwhelmed with an influx of separate school newsletters, separate school events, which is the opposite of coming together, and that is truly sad. On the heels of a pandemic, it would have made the most sense to have people happy with the idea if redistricting had been given the table time it deserved. It could have kept community schools in place, kept families together, and saved us all from the unnecessary stress this upheaval has brought to parents, kids, and teachers. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Aaliyah Vorlaus Jamska.
Worse. I have 2 elementary-aged children in the district, one in FGL and one at Furnace Woods. Staggered start times and unpredictable bus lateness has had a major impact on my business, and I've been struggling to maintain a reliable work schedule. Additionally, having to drive 20 minutes to my kindergartner's school every time he forgets something at home or needs to be picked up early is especially burdensome. I live 6 minutes from our former school, and dropping things off as needed was feasible. Now it means canceling appointments. Furthermore, he is constantly coming off the bus complaining of kids hitting, scratching, punching him and others. 90 minutes is too long for a bus packed exclusively with 5-year-olds to be traveling each day, particularly in the absence of a bus monitor.
When my son has called me from his smartwatch, he's routinely drowned out by a cacophony of screaming children, and all that is decipherable is the shouting of the bus driver who, instead of focusing on the road, is frantically screaming at them to sit down. In terms of environmental impact, it's apparent that the Princeton plan has contributed to a massive expansion of our carbon footprint. There is nothing so ironic as passing a sea of yellow school buses trailing exhaust emissions down Watch Hill, only to pull up at FGL festooned by solar panels and wind turbines. Academically, my oldest is suffering this year. She told me that she did not have any homework for the first 3 months of school. It wasn't until meeting with her teachers that I learned she does indeed have homework, but is not turning it in. This went on for months and no one notified me. More disturbing than that, for my daughter, all but a handful of kids are not turning in their assignments. And yet, despite this, I do not have a single communication about it. I've not received a single test or piece of returned work with notes. I'm flying blind with no measure of how my daughter is doing. It is not up to the standards of Furnace Woods to which I've become accustomed. It seems my daughter is sacrificing a proper 5th grade education to be a guinea pig for the district, and I'm paying more, not less, for that privilege. Socially, I find the kids more entrenched in their respective groups than ever before. My daughter, having once enjoyed a diverse group of friends within the school, now finds herself isolated to a small group she refers to as the OFW, Original Furnace Woods. From what I'm told, they are more segregated than ever and are repeatedly chastised for staying in cliques and pushed to commingle with others. However, after 2 years of closures, masks, freezing classrooms, scattered remote learning, followed by the mass upheaval of the district, is it not only natural for them to cling to that which is familiar and comfortable? My daughter has expressed that she feels isolated and lost. Those are quotes. The concentration of 5th graders is overwhelming, and the kids who grew up together are now separated. She and her peers also miss the younger kids with which they used to socialize, who are now reassigned to BV, and she has expressed that their absence is felt and mourned. It's like the community they built has been ripped asunder. Administrators used to know her name. She would be greeted by former teachers as she walked down the hall, and that afforded a degree of comfort and stability on which she came to rely. She grew up in the district and now feels like a stranger, a number. Quite frankly, she feels, and we feel, let down by the district.
Our next speaker is Jeremy Kaufman.
Good evening, and thank you to the board for hosting this event tonight. I've been a resident of this community, of this district, for 4.5 years. And my wife and I also moved here from New York City. We have a 4th grader, a 1st grader, and a pre-K student currently in the district. Casey and I moved our family to the district for its excellent reputation, which included small schools, small class sizes, and a strong sense of community. Until this year, we've been extremely happy here and have developed a very strong sense of community at Furnace Woods. Entire families within the school developed close ties. Most of the teachers knew all of our kids, and our younger kids were already comfortable and excited to go to the same school. The implementation of the Princeton plan has completely upended this newly formed sense of community for us and has divided ours and so many other families within the district. This connection and sense of community that we had started to enjoy has completely disappeared. We now feel like strangers. It's a massive loss for our family. We have heard that this same sentiment expressed by many friends from all 3 schools. We would have never chosen to move to this district in its current state. Had we known that in only a matter of years the things we love most about our district would be gone, we'd choose elsewhere to live. Our children miss one another. Our son just mentioned that the other day. We miss the fact that our eldest teacher already knew his siblings and knew their names and expected to possibly have them in a few years. My kids felt safe and at home. And then they were divided, split up. They lost every familiar staff member, most of the familiar teachers, and now rarely see the friends they had formed close bonds with, as there are so many kids the same age. The Princeton plan is hurting our children socially. How can they expect to develop strong bonds that they can take into middle school and high school when they're simply exposed to so many new faces each year and rarely get the chance to see old friends? The quality of their relationships have and will continue to suffer. The transition to the Princeton plan was heavily pitched to those who were aware of the impending change as a cost savings to the district. It has now been established that we have not saved a single dime. Clearly, this is not working. Did the board consider that the Princeton plan is actually costing the parents of elementary students as well? My wife is now spending an hour more every day getting our sons to school. Being that she sees patients by the hour, she has lost 5 patients a week, 20 patients a month. She wrote the board and shared exactly the dollar amount lost from sitting around waiting for a bus twice a day. It's shocking. We are now driving, wasting gas and more time all the way across town twice a day for every separate school activity, hiring double the babysitters for double the school events. What about next year when we'll have 3 different schools? How much more will that cost our family? What about the environmental costs of inefficiently driving buses all over the district? We want what we signed up for back. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Julia Wang.
Hi, my name is Julia. I have 3 children, 1 in each of the elementary schools. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come together to publicly voice our opinions on the Princeton plan. When the Princeton plan was first brought up, I struggled to see the negatives, or really to understand the strong reactions that opposers to the plan had. I trusted that leadership would spend the time needed to create a great experience for our children. There were things that I didn't love about the idea, but for me, kids getting to be in school with their entire grade band really outweighed the negatives. The fact that it would provide a more equitable experience across the district and shake things up, which I tend to think is a positive, also made me hopeful about the transition. So far this year, my kids are doing great. We're lucky in that regard. I'm meeting more parents and hearing names of more great teachers than I did for my previous 4 years at French Lindsay. I love that exposure, and I think it's going to benefit my family in the years to come. When I asked my kids, I only heard positives about their classes, recess, teachers, and friends. I'm still hopeful this can become a successful change, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't feeling the pain on a very practical level. Our bus stop moved. It's a big deal. I have 3 lunch calendars to keep track of, and I'm asked about them every day. When my kids are sick, I have to look up which nurse to email. I had to take half a day off of work to traverse 9A and Watch Hill to go to conferences at all 3 schools. I was given the choice to hire a babysitter for 3 nights or relay the information of Meet the Teacher Night to my husband while he stayed home. The bus schedules are rarely followed and hardly reliable. For example, my kindergartner's bus is consistently 15 minutes late, which means I have to keep my 2nd grader at the bus stop or send him home alone on a road with no sidewalks so he can go to the bathroom and get a snack. The execution of the busing has been the weakest link in this entire transition. That much is obvious given that an individual parent who has kids in middle school only has taken on a research project to present the board with facts to showcase the dramatic overcrowding of our buses. Yet, my 4th grader has 5 students on her bus in the morning. I've heard very little, if anything at all, about solutions, not just tonight. And rather than focus on who's to blame, I'm curious about why we're not focusing on the ways to make it right, or at least make it better. I understand we're waiting on success metrics and that this is a hearing, that this hearing is a forum for you to gather feedback. But those success metrics should have been set last year. Otherwise, it's just too easy to selectively choose which leads to success after the fact. Thank you.
Our next speaker is going to be Diana Conklin.
Conklin, and before the Princeton plan, I had friends from all the elementary schools in Hennepin. I understand the good reasons for it, but every day the bus trip is too long. Many kids are from different neighborhoods and we don't know each other. Each day I feel sad walking around the building that I don't know, and I feel scared and alone. I miss my old school every day. Most sad for me is I always looked forward to be seeing my sister in the same school as me. But we never got the chance to see her in the same school as me. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mike Sullivan.
Good evening, and many thanks to the board for allowing us the opportunity to, bring forth our thoughts and opinions on the Princeton plan. So I'll speak on behalf of myself and my wife, Myra. We have 4 children in 4 different schools. So you can imagine the daily challenges and fun this must bring, trying to manage bus schedules, activities, after-school activities, sports activities. You can imagine it. The amount of emails I receive from the 4 different schools each day and each week are just impossible to manage. And, again, what really upsets us is the manner in which this whole process was done. That, prior to the implementation of the Princeton plan is that, many community members came forth to bring forth their opposition, their concerns, their questions, and quite frankly, they were callously dismissed. We were told repeatedly that 40-minute bus rides were no big deal. Well, I can assure you my 7-year-old daughter, who cried every morning about not wanting to go on her bus to BV for 45 minutes, is now no longer going on the bus in the morning because we drive her, which is, again, another inconvenience. And I can again speak to my own personal experience that recently I was presented with a potential job opportunity, which unfortunately would have required me to go into the office 5 days a week as opposed to the flexible work schedule that I have right now, which is basically allowing me to become a professional bus scheduler and manager each day. So I basically had to turn down the opportunity because I need to be home more to assist my wife with helping our children, get to and from school and picked up and to be able to enjoy their activities and to, go on about their lives with the school. And then when you read and see from the recent board meetings that this plan is not providing any additional savings, I mean, it's frankly outrageous, and it enrages not just myself, but pretty much every member of the community here that is opposed to this. I mean, we were sold basically a bill of goods, that this was going to be beneficial to the community, it was going to save us money, and the reality is it's not. It's not saving us money, it's causing us mostly grief. And from what you hear from a lot of other parents here, a lot of children are not liking it. And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about, doing what's best for our children. That should always be the focus and core of every decision that is made by this board, is how are we going to make improvements that are for the benefit and the betterment of our children. And at the end of the day, I really have to ask, is this community going to be better with the implementation of this Princeton plan? Or is it simply better for the resumes of certain individuals on staff? Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Janine Heikenholz.
I would like to start by thanking this Board of Education for inviting the public to speak and share their thoughts and opinions on the district's move to the Princeton plan. As a member of the Princeton Plan Stakeholder Committee, one of the greatest disappointments I had about the investigation process was the fact that no one on our committee was allowed to present directly to the board or to the public about our process, what we learned, or to make any recommendations ourselves. The district made it very clear that they looked at the shift to the Princeton Plan as a cost-saving effort. They focused on the financial aspect, likely, in my opinion, because they thought that that was the way to get public support. However, their focus on money meant that they discounted or ignored many of the other aspects of the move. The parents on the stakeholder committee spent countless hours, far more time than we actually spent in committee meetings, researching the Princeton Plan, reading articles, talking to parents in other districts, and discussing the pros and cons. We met weekly, even though the committee only met a few times. By far, the parents who worked on that committee, who had kids in all the schools at all levels, came out in favor of the Princeton Plan for a number of reasons. Unfortunately, we don't have time to discuss all of that tonight. Tonight, I ask two things of the board and of the community. Please give us time to make this work. We can all agree that many things should have been done differently in the time between the prior board's vote to approve the Princeton Plan and the actual move to it this fall. And we can all agree that there are serious issues that need to be addressed. But now that we are in it, we need to allow time for everyone to settle in and work through the issues, to find a rhythm, to see what works, and to address what doesn't. Along those lines, I ask the board two things. Please obtain and provide to the community a specific breakdown of projected versus actual savings and expenses. Also, establish an oversight committee to ensure that these issues are being addressed and by the right people. Something this serious cannot be handled by just a few self-appointed individuals. More people need to be involved. Please ensure that a group of knowledgeable individuals, including administrators, teachers, staff, parents, community members, and students, is created and given authority to review the metrics and data, talk with people from all areas of our district, and to make recommendations. And please ensure that those recommendations are carefully considered by a variety of educators and that the best of them are carefully implemented following a clearly detailed and explained plan of action. I cannot stress enough the need to involve the community. Just like we are doing now with the strategic plan, holding multiple forums and focus groups, perhaps with a disinterested third-party facilitator, and giving parents and staff the opportunity to anonymously share their feelings, will go a long way to healing the rift that the Princeton Plan has opened within our community, and also provide invaluable information that can guide our district in creating a cohesive one-hen HUD plan for the future. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mary Hellman.
Hi, everyone. I'm an elementary educator with over 20 years of experience and just so happens to be in a Princeton Plan district. My husband has an ED from Teachers College. For 2 years, both of us attempted to engage reasonable evidence-based conversations about our concerns based on our own experiences and deep knowledge of the research. At every attempt to engage, members of the prior board and administration were disinterested, condescending, and made it very clear that our input was not relevant. A promise was made to me after my repeated attempts to follow up on a community member's request to know just how many families would have children with multiple children, children with multiple children, how many families had multiple children in multiple buildings. This information was never shared publicly. I was told we will contact them, the families, to discuss how we can best support them based on assignment of schools, etc. We understand this will create a hardship and we'll try to find plausible solutions. And that's a quote from the individual who emailed me. This promise of contact never materialized, even though I spent a year of multiple attempts, multiple emails to the board and administrators to try to follow up to get what's happening tonight to have happened a year ago. So here we are now discussing things that we should have discussed over a year ago, and that to me is infuriating. At no time have the conversations of the prior board or administration ever focused on the most important piece of this equation, and that's the elementary students of this district. Some members of the board and the admin attempted to deflect when we raised concerns by referring to equity, but then when we followed up about equity, they instead deflected back to cost savings. There's a distinct lack of leadership and accountability in this district, and this has caused a loss of trust, And although we truly respect the newer members of the board that are making a tremendous effort to address the magnitude of the changes that have been caused by the attendance policy change that was adopted, our children no longer attend the district here. The academic supports and structures that need to be in place in all 3 schools to support the increased number of transitions, which my husband came and talked to you guys about at a board meeting or the prior board meeting, and never even got a response or anything. And then we're going to add educational equity to the conversation, but go beyond just equal class sizes, because that's all I'm hearing. And equal class sizes is not equity. So if you're going to do that, you're going to need more ENL teachers, more academic intervention teachers, mental health professionals in buildings full-time in every building, additional TAs, additional monitors, bilingual support. So this goes on and on and on and on. And I'm going to add probably a really close look at your reading programs and supports that they offer to make sure that they're research-based. To address the associated academic and social emotional needs that are sure to be seen in the years to come, and that's going to outweigh the cost that this will have ever intended to save, which we're seeing is not saving anything. So this should be very, very concerning to you. And I do have some suggestions. I made them to the previous board. If you don't want to go back to the way things were, there are other models that bring equity and inclusion and diversity, if that's the way that you're looking to go.
Our next speaker is Jeff Gaspar.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Gaspar, and I'm a resident of the Hannah School District, and I have 3 children in the district. Thank you for your time tonight, and thank you for taking into consideration our experiences these first few months down on the Princeton plan. As I said, I have 3 children in the school district, a 7th grader, a 4th grader, and a 1st grader. I have the benefit of having one child that went through the kindergarten through 5, one school, and my other 2 are now going through this Princeton plan. I can say that my experience thus far indicates that the detriment of the Princeton plan far outweighs the benefits of it. Let me share with you how I came to that conclusion. Other than the presumed financial benefits of the Princeton plan was supposed to offer, I do appreciate the Princeton plan. Under the Princeton plan, my 2 younger children get to interact with classmates from the other 2 elementary schools that my oldest daughter did not get to meet until middle school. They get to know each other from a very young age, which avoids issues of integrating 3 schools into one when they hit 6th grade. That's about all I see as a benefit of the Princeton plan. So now I'll discuss that and everything we lost due to the Princeton plan, as well as my experience as a parent of 2 elementary children in 2 different schools. This means 2 different pickup times, 2 different drop-off times. My 1st grader spends an extra hour on the bus than my 4th grader spends. This is time that he could be unwinding and relaxing, doing homework, instead of spending it on a packed bus. This isn't advantageous to a 6-year-old's mental health. So I have to spend an hour, the first half hour on his school day riding a bus, and the last half hour sitting on a bus again. These long rides upset him so much he doesn't want to ride the bus anymore. The long ride has obvious impacts on his enthusiasm for school compared to when he had a 5-minute bus ride last year. Has any consideration been given to the mental health of the children who have to endure these long bus rides? Has any consideration been given to the mental health of children who have to change schools with new halls and new administrators and new teachers every other year? It's hard enough mentally for children to deal with the stresses of the curriculum, but now they're having to deal with their environment turned upside down every other year. Prior to the Princeton plan, children spent 6 years in the same schools, seeing the same children, seeing the same administrators, same teachers, and same children in different grades. Younger children were able to see their older siblings who were able to provide some semblance of stability when they were in kindergarten and 1st grade. We had book buddies where older children were able to partner with younger children to help them learn how to read. Our children could be in school with their neighbors up the street whose home they can walk to if they have a project or study, rather than needing a parent to drive 15 minutes and across the district in order to get kids together that are in the same class. For children who are having difficulties, new teachers in the next grade can't talk to teachers in the previous grade every other year because a 3rd grade teacher can't, a 2nd grade teacher isn't in the same school with the 1st grade teacher, and the 4th grade teachers are not in the same school with the 3rd grade teacher. So, this is having an impact on our kids' education and how our teachers can deal with their children. Other than the social problems that the Princeton plan has created in our district, there are other economic and environmental factors that dissuade us from continuing with the Princeton plan. There was supposed to be a savings, and obviously there's no savings. In actuality, the longer bus routes, the increased maintenance, and the fuel for the buses make things more expensive. And that doesn't even address the increased carbon footprint that these diesel buses are having. I know it's not convenient to cancel the Princeton plan, but it seems obvious to me that the benefits and detriments are addressed what must be done. The Princeton plan just does not seem to work for our community, and with that, I encourage the board to vote to go back to the K through 5. If there are inequities between schools, let's address those rather than turning our children's lives upside down every 2 years.
Our next speaker is Nancy Henning.
Hi, thank you. I need to read this because it's been a long day. Speaking of long days, let me take you through a typical day for my family this year. For myself and my kids, I take care of most of the transportation, and I have a first grader and a third grader. I work in the city, so my commute is long. I leave before the kids get up so I can be home in time to actually have some quality time with them in the evenings. They're young. Time with their parents, I think everyone can agree, is essential. 11 hours into my day, I drive past the road to my house to go for the pickup rounds. Stop 1, FGL. Park the car, say hi to the aides, sign the sign-out sheet, wait for them to bring my daughter to the cafeteria to collect her belongings, load her into the car, wait for the car seat to buckle, and drive to my next destination. Stop 2, DV. Unload the 6-year-old, walk to the door, ring the bell, say hi to the aide, sign the sign-out sheet. You get the point. While an extra 25 minutes of pickups may seem insignificant, when it comes out of the brief 2 hours I have with my children each day, it's nearly a quarter of the time. This is important. And on top of that, 2 back-to-school nights, 2 Halloween parades, 2 parent-teacher conferences, 2. And I have to say, I'm very fortunate. My employer and my direct leadership at work is phenomenal and so supportive of working parents. And without that, I could not go to Halloween parades at 2 different schools. I could not be present for my children. And I know there are families in this district who don't have that flexibility, who can maybe make it to 1. So how are they doing with all of this? Because now they're having to pick and choose what they're doing for each child, if they can even manage it with all of this running around. Last year, my children would chatter about where they saw each other during the day, what was said in the morning. They would sing songs they both learned in music. They had a home away from home. They do not have that shared experience with each other this year, and the connection to their school is gone. And even if they manage to develop it in the next 6 months, they're going to another school for both of them next year. Any positive feedback I hear about the Princeton plan cites equity. On March 8th, 2021, I asked the Board of Ed if an assessment was done to address the equity issues and the achievement gap between our schools, since this was being touted as possibly yielding equity benefits, and anyone who seems to support it cites those equity benefits. I didn't get any real response on that. I asked this again of Mr. Hochreiter in a Princeton plan forum, and he told me point blank, this is not an equity solution. I agree there were equity issues before. We needed an equity assessment. We took this financial assessment and said, oh, maybe it could also do these things. We should have solved the problems, not burdened ourselves with this mess and this financial burden. Additionally, we should have addressed the issues because every child deserves the best education and it should have been equitable before. That's what should have been fixed.
Our next speaker is Chris Belov. Our next speaker is Christina Duffy.
Loss, burden, disappointment.
I have 3 kids at 3 schools, 3 pickup times, 3 drop-off times, 3 principals, 3 school activity calendars, etc. Prior to implementation of Princeton Plan, I had a new and flourishing small business. I've had to take leave from that role in order to pursue a new one. To perfect the art of wizardry and be in 3 places at once. Loss. There is a loss of family. As a young child, there is no one we are closer to than our siblings. The comfort of being with siblings at school no longer exists. There's a loss of neighborhood and community, loss of the relationships with neighborhood children of all ages with whom our children grow with and learn from, play and find support. Neighborhood and community have vanished. There is a loss of socialization and extracurriculars with the logistics of multiple drop-off times at an hour when many start eating dinner. Play dates just don't happen. There is a loss of access to education for our children, and this is by far the greatest loss. Developmentally, children require stability and consistency, and during a pandemic when children's academics have suffered in an unimaginable way, they need the stability and consistency more than ever, not only to flourish in a learning environment, to feel safe and secure socially and emotionally, to see and be around their friends and family and the incredible teachers they had in kindergarten and first graders as 5th graders. Burden. The burden on families is insurmountable. It's a logistical nightmare. I gave up my growing business to be a full-time logistics manager to 3 small children. This has forced me to have to hire after-school help to coordinate the drop-offs, pickups, and to allow for very limited school activities with such late and unpredictable drop-off times. The busing complexity was immediately a burden for my son. He was on a bus that went to BB first instead of FGL. He's a 5-year-old FGL kindergartner and was initially on a bus for over 1 hour each way, 1 hour. This was a complete violation of published school district policy that was educationally, physically, and emotionally detrimental to my son who has special needs. No one notified me of the bus routes or timing, and I only learned about this after following his bus to school one day. Watching my child ran into the public school, getting off the bus, racing into his classroom absolutely broke my heart. While transportation was accommodating and helped change the bus route, I would not have known about this if I didn't take action into my own hands. Where's the oversight here? There is a burden on the environment. Prior to implementation of Princeton Plan, I requested an environmental impact study with the new suggested busing. I was laughed at. These busing activities, as we've learned, to no one's surprise, are an enormous burden on the environment and are causing an explosion of greenhouse gas emissions within the town of Portland. There is also a financial loss. The increase for teacher assistants are causing missed savings targets identified from the Princeton Plan implementation. These issues affect future proposed tax increases and need rectification or better communication to the community to get far ahead of messaging for the 2023-2024 budget plan. Many might not have time to closely monitor and advocate for equitable social, academic, travel, extracurricular activities in our district. And I'll just say, personally, I'm deeply disappointed. That this was so myopically implemented with zero transparency. The Princeton Plan diametrically opposes any and all consideration for families and children in our community for the future success of all of our children.
Our next speaker is Ariel Whalen.
Hi, everyone. I feel slightly out of place following Chris, do you think you said her name? Yeah. Because I don't have students yet in the school district. I have a 2-year-old and an 8-week-old. And I'm slightly reluctant to come and speak because they're not in school yet. But I wanted to say that I moved to this town from New York City. It sounds like there's a lot of expats here. Mostly because we wanted the community, but also because, my husband and I knew that if we stayed in our apartment, where the joke was one of us would end up in jail and the other one would end up dead. Anyway. But I moved here because of the neighborhood's great reputation, and I think a lot of people do as well. And I have to be honest that I wouldn't have done that if I knew that the Princeton Plan was in place, or at least I would have really, it would have been a really hard decision. But more than that, I wouldn't have moved here if I knew that such massive plans like this one were implemented without real engagement from the community. It sounds like that there wasn't, or at least that people feel like that they weren't heard, which is disappointing. And so I think we have an opportunity here, and I feel a little bit like an interloper, but we have an opportunity here, instead of the reputation that everybody has, right? This one has a great, reputation for whatever, school districts and all sorts of stuff, but imagine if our reputation was that we saw an issue, we course corrected, we engaged with our community, and we made a change, and it's not too late to do that. The other thing I'll say is that right. Imagine if that was our reputation, that we were known as a district that saw these resource inequities and saw all these issues and then made a big change instead of just kind of fighting with each other. And the other thing I'll say is that I would implore the board to think of these people in the room, and myself included, not just as parents, but also leaders and professionals and folks that have a wealth of experience from all sorts of places, and we want to help and we want to be part of the solution. I think a lot of us have great ideas and best practices from the private sector and other parts of the public sector, and not just to think of us as, we're going to bounce ideas out of, but an idea generation community. I think we have a lot of good things to say, and I think we all want the same thing, which is the best for all kids, not just our own. And that your success is our success, and we want to be part of that together. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Monks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I grew up in a district that had Princeton Plan, and I had a very positive experience. When I moved here in my junior year, I thought it was the strangest thing that we had 3 K-5 elementary schools. Why aren't the kids all together starting from K? Some of my closest friends didn't live in my immediate neighborhood, and I can't imagine meeting them for the first time in middle school. I was so happy when I heard Princeton Plan was on the table, but not because it was saving money, because as pointed out a few meetings ago, for many of us, it was about equity and diversity. It was about bringing together kids, it was about bringing kids together and about having them all having the same opportunities. I have a daughter in 5th and a son in 3rd. My daughter was recently diagnosed with dyslexia, and it was recommended that she be placed in an ICT class this year. If Princeton Plan wasn't implemented this year, she would have had to change schools specifically for her new diagnosis. I am so grateful that changing schools wasn't a result of her new struggle in her life. Now, no parent will have to make the decision to either separate siblings or not give one child the much needed help they need, because without Princeton Plan, my kids would be in different schools anyways. Now she has the opportunity to be in school with her friends from all 3 schools and is also making new friends. She will now enter middle school next year with an army of friends. My kids were nervous about the change at first, but also excited to be with all their friends. They're having a good experience so far. They may not be in class with all of their friends, but they are making new ones, which is the point. In their words, it's more fun having more kids in their grade. They and I like having the new special STEM and having new teachers for their specials. I love that each school can now be geared towards the 2 grades it holds. Furnace Woods has a Sailor news show with student reporters and is giving kids some independence to prepare them for middle school. I can't wait to see what else we can do that we couldn't with the previous model. Yes, the bus rides are long. My kids are on the bus for about 30 minutes, though one of my kids could probably walk there faster. But they see it as an opportunity to hang out with their friends before school starts. Please, let's not go back to the old model. Let's not go back to segregating our kids.
Our next speaker is Alicia Renabaro.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity to hear us tonight. I think a lot of what I'm one of the last people on everything that I've said has pretty much been covered. But I do want to give a different perspective from a former BB parent. I actually lived in Portland Manor and my kids prior to this year were in BV. It was a long bus ride. They got picked up at 8:10 in the morning and school started at 9. So I've been on long bus rides all along. I'm here to say that I've loved BV. I think BV gets a bad rap, and a lot of people know that the Furnace Woods parents are the ones that are making the most noise. And I was not initially against Princeton Plan, but now I am, and I'm gonna read what I came here to say. I'm a mom of 3. I have a 4th grader, 1st grader, and preschooler. This is my 5th year as an elementary parent, with 8 more years to go until my youngest enters middle school. When the Princeton Plan was announced 2 years ago, we were facing many challenges as a district. We were also in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. Parents were in survival mode. At the time, I think many of us, myself included, were distracted and not focused on the Princeton Plan and what the implementation of it would truly mean for our kids in the future. What would the pros and cons be? All I understood was that it was the only way we could make ends meet financially as a district after the closing of Indian Point. So I accepted it, and I decided to make the best of it with an open mind. Now that I've lived with the Princeton Plan for the past few months, I realize there are a lot more moving parts than many of us realize. From a logistical standpoint, I feel that this model is not sustainable for families with multiple children in elementary. Busing issues, drop-off and pickup times, and excessive amounts of communication from multiple schools is overwhelming. It also puts a burden on working parents who rely on the help of many family members and others for childcare, now asking those people to juggle multiple start and end times at different schools in different towns. More importantly, we need to consider if this is the best model for young children to build the solid social and emotional foundation they need to succeed. Bouncing kids around from building to building every 2 years at such a young age does not foster a sense of belonging and community. Also under this model, siblings are broken up and robbed of the very special and fleeting experience of being in school together. A 2-year school is a revolving door. For example, my 1st grader, starting at BV last year, is now in FGL this year, goes back to BV next year, then on to Furnace Woods 2 years later, and Blue Mountain 2 years after that. He will be starting 5 schools in 7 years. That is not right to do to our youngest learners, some of which are already behind due to the events of the last couple of years. Lastly, I want to bring up the term equity. What does this mean? Although the lack of equity between schools was never cited as a reason for the switch to Princeton Plan, it is a term I hear a lot of people talk about, and I think it needs to be clearly defined going forward so that everybody's on the same page. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Shannon Silva.
Okay. Please bear with me, I really stink at this. Good evening, Board of Ed. Thank you all for being here. I hope you're all doing some real self-care, because this is extremely draining. Listening to all the concerns here tonight, it's not a surprise. A lot of this was brought up while this implementation was being talked about, right? The issue that I think we all have is the administration. The lack of planning that we have seen, it's horrible. Those tasked with making sure there was a plan, they failed us. They failed us miserably. I begged to get our 3 principals together so we can see how they were going to work together and be united, because we all knew, unless you're a kindergarten mom, or parent rather, we all knew that they didn't see eye to eye. We knew there was a divide in this community. I begged, we didn't get it. The first PTA meeting, it was embarrassing when they were all together and how there was 0 continuity. I'm doing this, oh, well, that's about all we've got going on. It was hard to watch.
I asked for bus monitors because of the dangerous conditions for our youngest of travelers. It took a month for the school assembly to teach proper behavior on a bus. They are kindergartners. It's the first time they've been on a bus, and we didn't teach them how to behave for a month. I was hopeful that we would lose the divide in this community and there would be a one hen HUD, and no longer the, that's because you're an FGL mom, or that's because you're Furnace Woods. But now we're divided over Princeton Plan and if we're anti or pro. Diversity is not about race. Yeah, it's a proponent, right? And clearly when we look around tonight, there's a huge population missing. It's about socioeconomics as well. That doesn't know race. And it's also about neurodiversity. Tonight, I'm hearing a lot of my kid. And unfortunately, there's going to be collateral damage. My child is also in this. But my oldest, who's a freshman, coming out of the middle school, still not knowing kids that were from Furnace Woods, being that I was a Frank G mom, okay? And telling me, well, those Furnace Woods kids, they're weird. They still don't talk together. This was supposed to do something and it didn't. And it's because of the people who were supposed to be doing the checks and balances. You guys up here don't have the education. I hope that the people who do have the education, that were supposed to plan, they were supposed to predict these things and get ahead of it, will do something.
The next speaker is Amy Burns.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm actually Amy Burns Cielanu. You might have heard of my son, Christoph. I've caused quite the ruckus to all of your board members. So in case you don't know, we are new to the district, only a year and a half. My husband is Cameroonian and we have two amazing mixed biracial, multicultural kids who are a little wiggly, right? We're large and we're wiggly, and but we have so much to offer. And I think because we are the Cielanu clan, and you know, as I recognize so many already, we've only been here a year and a half, and we feel connected. And I bring this up because it's the connection that gives me the courage to speak about our experiences. And of course, I'm going to be egocentric about this. This is about my experiences and my kids' experiences. I am an educator and I believe in diversity, and I've lived around the world and I've worked private and public and I've written curriculums and I've spoken at forums. And at the end of the day, doing what's right for the children first is what matters. And I feel like you guys get this more than ever. I wasn't privy to previous board experiences. So I'm just so lucky that my kids are in the care of you at this point. And I trust that the process and the discourse will yield beneficial results. I just caution all of us to make sure that the kids come first. Because when my son participates in an ambassador interview, because he's so excited to be a 5th grade ambassador, and he essentially is asked the question about why is Henhud the best district, or why is Lakeland not the best district, or why is Princeton Plan the best model, I can't help but feel like it was a developmentally appropriate move, because Christoph doesn't know about Lakeland. Christoph doesn't even understand Princeton Plan. He understands lacrosse, soccer, football, all those things. Video games, yes. Why Princeton Plan is the best model? No. But during his ambassador interview with Joe and his principal, Josh, he was asked to become a KGB agent on the playground and on the bus and rat out his peers when they make poor choices. Now, just in case you haven't picked up on my theme, Christoph makes poor choices. I wrote a check to JY Moon for $11,000 for an after-school bus program because Christoph can't handle a 40-minute bus ride. I don't think it's developmentally appropriate. And like, fortunately, a lot of scientists agree with me. They say the general rule of thumb is however many years they are, that's how much time they can handle focused and self-regulating. Christoph, he was 9 when he started. on his 45 minutes to 55 minutes bus ride. Christoph got into fights, Christoph got threatened, Christoph choked, Christoph got dropped off by a bus driver who literally delivered the Heimlich, but then didn't give him his school bag, lunchbox, or water bottle, and just kept driving. Christoph's younger brother brought him home that day. So while I value everything you're doing so far, I wish you the best of luck keeping my kids safe and your decision-making child-centered. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jamila Espinoza.
She had to leave, sorry.
And our last speaker is Rachel Fenty.
All right, well, I may not be last, so I'm gonna keep this really quick. As a parent that bleeds blue, it breaks my heart to see the community still so divided over this, and the district administration is to blame. With the 5% district turnout here tonight, I feel they're passionate. I really do, I get it. Penn Hud has been putting our most vulnerable population on buses for over an hour for years, often separating them from their neighborhood schools, buildings, etc., because it means giving them what they need. Princeton plan should have always been about giving kids what they need, not about money. As a full-time working parent who had 4 kids in 4 buildings, I felt the pain of juggle, but it also made me feel so much more connected to the Sailor community. And I've also seen firsthand the difference in the schools. And I also add, not only did I have 4 kids, I was taking care of a 5th, getting her to school. So I figured it out and worked full-time. I've also sadly seen the firsthand for 2 of my children, how the transition from the small elementary school setting to middle school caused severe anxiety and social emotional strains on their mental health. Instead of the district preparing for the Princeton plan challenges, we decided to bring in 3 times the amount of out-of-district students for special education, taking experienced, valuable teachers away from our kids, and we introduced UPK, taking 2 qualified teachers away from and putting our K classes at max. Also putting our buildings at a max capacity and not accounting for all the K students who, when evaluated for related services like AIS, OT, and speech, they're not able to get it because our teachers are teaching UPK and out-of-district kids. These were all concerns raised by parents over and over again during the countless pre-Princeton plan forums that were hosted before the vote in March of 2021. I attended many of them. I know firsthand what was discussed. These were the concerns: transportation, size of buildings, access to resources. Again, this was not a secret that parents were concerned about this. This should have been a plan and addressed. The school administration knew about these concerns. They were discussed over and over again, and I am begging you to put together committees of parents, special ed, gen ed, high school, middle school, elementary, teachers, principals, get these committees together, figure out a solid plan, meet regularly, and let's figure out how to move forward as a true one Penn Hud.
I'm sorry, there is one more speaker. I did overlook Jessica Permack.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us this time to speak tonight. I'm here solely as a parent tonight. As many of you may know me in other sectors. I have 2 children. I have a 3rd grader and I have a 1st grader. Both of my children are part of our special education department in 2 very different settings. I have a 12-1-2 child and a 9-2 child. Both of my children, unfortunately, got the short end of the stick. They're both in schools for 1 year this year to move on to another school next year. My son, specifically my oldest, he suffers from very severe anxiety on top of the extra anxiety so many of our children are already experiencing. This year he was forced to have a new therapist, a new counselor. We are now in December and he still doesn't really have the bond with her that is necessary to properly help him. By the time he is bonded with her next year, he'll have to go on to another therapist. This is not helping our children emotionally. My daughter in first grade here, she's in the ICT program. She meets with the counselor as well, and she got very lucky. She kept her same related service providers. But next year she'll have to have a new one. She comes home every day crying that she has no friends, that nobody plays with her. She doesn't get to see her friends that we were promised she would be able to see and make new friends. And this is very concerning to me as a parent, that our children are not being socially, emotionally helped in a proper way. As a professional, I can tell you it is not healthy for a child to go from counselor to therapist, even 2 years. It's not healthy for them. They cannot build that relationship they need to treat their anxiety or whatever reason they are seeking counseling. I can attest to this professionally and as a mom of 2 special needs children. I am very concerned about this, and I hope that whatever decision is going forward, we can figure out a way to help these children who do need this, because it is very important. My first grader should not be crying every day. My third grader should not still be struggling in December to have his anxiety needs met in a school setting. That is all. Thank you.
All right. Well, that concludes the public comments tonight. Thank you all for coming. The board will be taking emails and possibly, going further with meet and greets and other ways to engage with community members. And after we've, kind of got a hold on our learning and our feedback, we will present out to the community what we've learned. So, in the past, we've heard that you fill out surveys and you do all these things and then you don't hear back what everybody's been thinking or saying or feeling. And we want to make sure that we present you with an overall look at everything that we've gathered. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being brave and sharing your vulnerable stories or what you like and what's working and what's great. We really do appreciate it. So I hope everybody has a great night. We do have to officially close the meeting. Can I have a motion to close? And a second? All in favor? Aye. Have a great night.